anyone here remember what they had for lunch at the start of the week? Raise your hands if you do. Like Monday. Okay, not everyone will remember what they had for lunch at the start of the week. Because when it comes to food, most of ourselves fill ourselves with whatever we deem available and desirable at the time. Ramen, sushi, anything, you name it. It is engraved in our brains that we need food and resources to keep all our internal systems running. Let me introduce you to Ed. Ed lives as a voice in the heads of those struggling with eating disorders. According to the National Eating Disorder Association in the United States, Ed lives in approximately 700 million people's heads all around the world. That's nearly the population of an entire continent of Europe. Let me tell you more about Ed. Ed is loud, Ed is unpleasant, and Ed is obnoxious. There are many different versions of Ed, but here we'll be discussing the two main and most common types of eating disorders, anorexia and bulimia nervosa. Anorexia nervosa. It is a psychiatric condition in which people avoid food, severely restrict food, or only eat minimal amounts of certain foods. This leads to a significantly low body weight, and thus heightening the risk of death and morbidity rates. Ed is a serial killer. He is the new Ted Bundy. 1 in 10 people suffering from anorexia nervosa falls victim to Ed's killing spree. With heightened risk of suicide, 1 in 4 people suffering from anorexia nervosa commit suicide. While on the other hand, bulimia nervosa is not a term that we commonly hear. It is a psychiatric disorder characterized by binge eating and inappropriate compensatory behaviors to control their body weight. These inappropriate compensatory behaviors are called purging. Purging can range from self-induced vomiting to the misuse of laxatives and diuretics. See this plate of food. Let's hypothetically say that Ed is inside your head. Ed will constantly and painfully remind you in great detail what you've eaten in this past week. Every crumb, every cracker that has passed your mouth, every calorie that you take in, Ed will make you relieve the guilt for eating that food. Ed will also tell you that if you eat this, you look like you've gained weight. If you eat this, your lunch will stick out of your jeans. If you eat this, everyone will notice that you got chubbier. In the public's consciousness, the discussion surrounding food has been split into two broad categories. These categories range from good and bad. In the end, it all comes down to the truth that all foods provide some form of nutrients and nourishment to our body. But by attributing a moral alignment to these food items, people can feel guilty about eating certain foods. These negative emotions can then lead to self-hate, shame, and general hopelessness when surrounded by food. Based on a quantitative survey done on 63 adolescent respondents, 57.2% of people experience some form of guilt after eating. But Ed, he doesn't stop haunting you there. Ed will be your worst nightmare, the worst roommate you could possibly co-inhabit with. Not only does Ed disturb your peace while eating, Ed will also put distorted lenses on you. And to pair it in with Instagram, and appearance and reality will no longer become realistic. Instagram. I'm assuming most of us here use Instagram, and it is the app that we most frequently use to check up on everything and everything that everyone's doing. And as we scroll through our feed, our explore page, we will inevitably come across different types of people and different types of content. Sometimes we'll pass by influencers. They are pushed up by the algorithm to influence us with something. Here, when you see someone attractive, you would naturally want to compliment them or take inspiration from their action. But Ed, he will tell you otherwise. Ed will constantly tell you, why doesn't your body look like that? Why not you? Why don't you look like that? Don't you want to have that? This will eventually develop depression and body dissatisfaction, which may spiral down to anxiety. And this is a gateway for Ed to get all up into you. Based on the data collected in this survey, a whopping total of 90.5% of people have come across posts of what society considers to be thin and ideal. And when you interact with these posts, types of content, the algorithm will naturally suggest you more and more content to see. This could possibly open a pathway for restrictive or extreme dieting content. 89.1% of the respondents have been suggested this type of content by the algorithm. And you may be wondering, what does all of this data mean? Why is it even relevant? Does Instagram's algorithm really influence the prevalence of anorexia and bulimia among adolescents? The key is in HVSM, also known as highly visual social media. It is characterized to be a social media that influences you in such a way by using visual content. Instagram is a form of HVSM. Exposure to HVSM may be an important contributor to the prevalence of eating disorders in adolescents. In a person's critical developmental stage of adolescence, in which we high schoolers are in, there is an increased focus in body image, linking to the subject's self and social worth, and is usually influenced by a certain body type. Adolescents and HVSM use can wreak havoc on a person's view of themselves. This heightens the risk of developing eating disorders. This eventually funnels us down to the question, how triggering is highly visual social media that contains eating disorder-related content to adolescents? From what the researcher has found, close to half of the 63 respondents find restrictive dieting, thin bodies, and extreme weight loss content triggering. And as we calculate, the total of 82.5% of people find this content in some way triggering and disturbing. This adds proof to the fact that HVSM such as Instagram may be a contributor to development of eating disorders. Such content shouldn't be allowed on the platform, as it has devastating effects. This romanticizes and idolizes the unhealthy body ideals. So, how is Instagram even allowing and enabling these pictures on their platform when their own policies say otherwise? This is hypocrisy at best. Instagram's official policy states that we'll remove content that promotes or encourages eating disorders while allowing people to share their journeys and experiences on self-image and body acceptance. This policy is considered to be patchy at best. We have normal influencers, and here now we have thin influencers. Thin influencers who promote this disordered eating behavior on their content. And these contents are problematic because every one of these posts have high amounts of interaction and people looking up to them. Such accounts should have been banned by Instagram as they post triggering content. This further shows how the policy is botched and how the algorithm just pushes them up to vulnerable people for them to see. If you've fallen victim to Ed, getting help is the only way out. Ed will hold you down. He will hold you down with impossible knots to undo. The problem is, not everyone knows how to undo it themselves, and they don't know where to go. Eating disorder awareness accounts are the shining light on the dark reality of eating disorders. The sheer rarity of awareness accounts that are pushed out by the algorithm is saddening. Only 27% of people have seen an eating disorder awareness account. The rarity of these accounts calls for more people to come into action and spread awareness about the causes. Instagram, you must take action. As a leading social media platform, you must take a proactive stance in addressing the negative impacts of its platform on the youth's mental health, particularly concerning eating disorders. And their parent company, Meta, must prioritize the well-being of its users and strive for a safer online environment by implementing policies that discourages unhealthy body ideals and disordered eating behaviors. Adjudicators, advisors, parents, and fellow researchers, my name is Joline, and this concludes my presentation. Thank you for your presence and information.